Oh, hello. Today we are going to be talking about what I have been reading in December. And I'm going to be honest, I was shocked when I was looking that I actually had things to talk to you guys about because it feels like I've not gotten much reading done. It's just been a really busy, from Thanksgiving to now has just been super busy. At work, things have been crazy. I don't know if other people's work is like this, but it's like everyone knows the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's, nobody's getting anything done. Therefore, we try to push as much as possible into the weeks prior to that. So that has just been draining me. I actually did full holiday decorations this year. I've had lots of different Christmas things happening since most people in my life are vaxxed and boosted. So that's been nice. But anyway, I just feel like I have not had nearly as much energy to read this month than I have in a while. Oh, I guess also because I've been filming all of my best of the year videos, which I love. But anyway, I feel like I've not read as much, but I actually have been reading some when I went to look at it. So we'll talk about what I've read, what I am currently reading, what I might read next. Also, I'm sorry if there's some shaking here. Setup on this is a little bit weird, but I wanted to film this before work, so we're just kind of making do with things. Anyway, let's hop into it, shall we? Okay, in terms of things that I'm going to talk about more at the end of the month, one, definitely my biggest hit so far is The Whiteness of Wealth by Dorothy A. Brown, which is a nonfiction book about how the tax code in the US disproportionately impacts Black people. I have an accounting degree, so this could not have been more up my alley. I really enjoyed this. We'll talk more about that at the end of the month. The other end of the month hit that we will talk more about is Love Matters, which is edited by Jessica Pride, and it is it's basically like a literary study of the romance genre, but from the angle of talking about Black love romances. And it's got authors and readers and scholars, I don't know, it's got a whole bunch of different kinds of people who contributed, and it was really interesting. So we'll talk more about that at the end of the month. And then I already have the podcast episode up for Shards of Hope by Nalini Singh. This was a big reread for me this month, and it was lovely. So anyway, you can go listen to the podcast episode. We are on hiatus with the podcast until January because I just realized with everything going on, one good decision I made was to take one thing off of my plate and give myself a little bit of breathing room in the back half of December. So good job, past Mara, thinking that through. But we will pick up at the beginning of January with the next book, which I'll mention here in a little bit. So a couple things I'm not going to talk more about. I guess I can tell you about everything else. First off, I did read How to Read a Dress, A Guide to Changing Fashion from the 16th to the 21st Century by Lydia Edwards. So basically what this book does is it uses extant garments as an example of different silhouettes in decades starting with let's call it the Tudor period and coming up through 2020. Now, if you are someone who knows a lot about this topic and wants really rigorous, very detailed scholarship about this stuff, I don't think that this is a book for you. However, I really enjoyed this as an aspiring seamstress to find silhouettes or shapes that I like from historic periods, because I don't foresee myself wanting to recreate actual historical garments, but I have been finding that I am really drawn to a lot of the shapes in historical garments. So it was helping me kind of define what it is about those shapes that I like, and giving me ideas of, kind of patterns that I might want to seek out, things that I might take from here or there to mash up. So I actually found this really helpful as just sort of a guide to sort of establishing a vocabulary around shapes in garments. Also, I'm sorry if you hear Marble, this is the time of day where she cries for no apparent reason. So I found this really helpful to kind of start getting ideas about different things I could pull from and different shapes that I might want to incorporate. Isn't this super cute? I feel like this is actually one that I might want to try to see if I can just straight up recreate. But anyway, I thought that this was helpful as a, let's call it, low intermediate student of the history of fashion. I thought that this suited the purposes for which I wanted it nicely. Then I read a couple of pretty unmemorable romance shorts. So, The Mabon Feast by C.M. Nacosta, I think is the author, the one who wrote Morning Glory Milking Farm. I actually thought that was a pretty interesting take on a Halloween monster romance. Basically, we have a witch who's been cast out of her coven, and there's a Spider-Man monster who comes to be her renter, and then they end up getting it on. I think that it needed to be longer for it to really sell me both the world building and the romance, but both the world building and the romance were very intriguing, and I wish that it had been longer because I think it could have been a much better or stronger story. story if it had been longer and had time to develop the two very interesting things it had going on. Also, yeah, the sex in this was definitely monster erotica, and that was a lot. So just a warning there. He's a Spider-Man, so like a half man, half spider monster thing, and it was a lot. Anyway, that was interesting. And then, Sworn to the Shadow God. I finally read that. That is the sequel to Bound to the Battle God, and this is in the Anchor and Aspect world that Ruby Dixon has going. This is the only of her series that I'm behind on at this point. Though now I guess I only have one book left to catch up with that only just came out. So I guess this was me sort of like catching up. I continue to really like the world of this version of high fantasy. This is a fascinating series in terms of its genre, because I feel like if you are a romance reader who is interested in epic fantasy and needs a book or a series, I guess at this point, to help you get used to the kind of pacing you get in an epic fantasy, I think that this could be a really good series for people to start with in terms of bridging that divide. I think that fans, if you come to this book primarily for the fantasy, I think you'll be disappointed because the plot isn't enough like an epic fantasy that I think that would be frustrating. I feel like I'm not communicating that I actually really like these books. This I was between a 3.5 and a 4-star on. I didn't like it as much as the first one, mostly because there was like a reveal that came at the third of the way mark that I was like, it was so obvious that I wish that she had just let the character realize it earlier, because it was me screaming at the page like, how do you not realize this is what is going on? And that's always annoying. But that being said, I really like the actual characters, and the world is just, I really like the setup of this, which I guess I should say. Basically, there's this idea that in this fantasy realm, there's this pantheon of gods. There's the High Father, and then there's 12 gods underneath him. And every once in a while, the High Father gets pissed at all of them and basically says, like, you need to learn some lessons before I let you come back and continue in your godlike way. And so he sends them to the mortal realm, but he breaks them into 4 aspects of their nature. So there's lies, hedonism, apathy, and arrogance are the 4 aspects. And each of those 4 aspects has to kill off the other ones, and one of them will like kind of come out ahead of things, but they are bound to the mortal realm by an anchor who really is the way that they die. So if you don't kill the god, you kill their anchor. And the anchor's job is to sort of like remind them of their humanity and kind of humble them a little bit so that they kind of learn some lessons before they go back to being in their eternal godlike state. And I think it's called like the Reckoning. Oh no, the Anticipation. That's what it's called. And that comes like, there's no regular schedule for it, but there's not been one in like 1,000 years. And we are following a few different gods during their anticipation periods. And there's basically romances between one of these aspects of the god and their anchor. And the anchors are women from our world, reasons, I don't know. Anyway, I like that world setup. I think it's fun. This one I think wasn't as strong, but again, I do continue to just be intrigued by the kind of genre mashup this is. Like I don't know that I've ever read something that's tone is exactly like this. And I really am into it. I'm also very into the gods walking among us, so trope-wise, that really works for me. Yeah, anyway. So I read that, and then I guess the only other notable thing I should mention is The Paradox Hotel by Rob Hart. This is another one, maybe this could be a surprise at the end of the month, but I am struggling to figure out like how to rate or talk about it, because I think that the idea of it is really good. I think the writing is solid, and I like the characters, but like the execution of the premise, I think leaves a lot to be desired. So it's like C+ execution of the plot, and everything else I would give like a B+ to an A to. So I think I landed on like 3.5 stars for this, because I do think it's like worth trying if you're intrigued by this. Basically, this is I would describe this as a sci-fi thriller, because we have this hotel, the Paradox Hotel, and it is a place where people who are going to do time traveling, they're going to go back in time and I don't know, like go to the Coliseum to see the gladiators fight, or they're going to go see Othello in the Globe for the first time, or whatever. Like it's basically rich people going back in time to see things from the past. They stay at this hotel, which is owned by the government and is near this like government facility where the time traveling happens. But basically we're with the security officer of that hotel, who her girlfriend, I mean like the love of her life kind of thing, died recently. And so she's grieving that. But then the other thing that's unique about her is that she is quote unquote unstuck. And unstuck means that you experience spontaneous time traveling basically. And and eventually it will kill you, or like basically bad things eventually happen to you if this is the situation you're in. She is really in stage 2, but she's telling everybody she's in stage 1. And there's this big conference that's going to be happening at the hotel because the government is selling off the hotel and the facility essentially to the highest bidder. And so it's like this big political thing that's happening. And she has this unstuck moment where she sees this body that is dead, and she doesn't quite know like where in time that is. And she's also like sometimes seeing the guests in the hotel and sometimes not, and like other people who are not unstuck are also sometimes seeing him. So anyway, like it's basically like a thriller trying to figure out like who done it, like how does it tied into this big political thing that's happening, also time travel. So I do think that this is like a much better version of this kind of plot than what I read from Blake Crouch. It reminds me, I think it is very Blake Crouchian in its project. So if you like Blake Crouch, I definitely think this is one worth giving a try. I don't know that he held all of the different threads of the plot together enough for my satisfaction, but I felt like it was a good college try, and I thought the writing and characters were strong enough that I mostly gave it a pass on that. I also thought that it dealt with the thematic or like moral things that time travel brings up. I actually thought that it was a much better interrogation of those issues than we often get in this kind of book. So while overall I wouldn't say it was like the best, I do think it's still worth giving a try, and I do ultimately have pretty warm feelings towards it, but just also ambivalence, if you can't tell. So anyway, that comes out in February. I think it's like February 22nd. So if you like Blake Crouch or you're into what I just described, I think it's a much better written version of what I read from Blake Crouch. And I do think that it's an interesting book. Like I don't think you'll be bored in it. You may not end up liking it, but I don't think you'll be bored, if that makes sense. So that is what I've read. In terms of what I'm currently reading, I guess I technically am reading Razor Blade Tears by S.A. Crosby because I just started the audiobook that I got from the library. I got a recommendation on Bethany's live show when we were reacting to the Goodreads choice nominees. Somebody I think it was in the chat, said that the audiobook was particularly good, so that's the route that I'm going. It's a revenge mystery thriller type plot, so intrigued by that. I've read the titular story of Seasonal Work by Laura Lippman. Really like the writing in it, so I'm excited to dig into the rest of this. It is a short story collection, and they all, I think, are sort of like literary mystery thriller suspensey type stories. So I'm excited to get more into this. Very much enjoy what I've read so far. And then the big thing that has been like dominating my reading has been The Mad Ship. So I'm only 276 pages in, but it's already great. You know, Kyle fucking Haven is still being the asshat that we came to know in the first book. Me and Leanna are buddy reading this. I wish I was further along in this, and I wish that I could just sit down and like read it all the way through. I just don't think that's gonna happen this month, so whatever. That's just such is life, but I am enjoying what I've read so far of this, and yeah, stay tuned. I'll give you the full rundown at the end of the month. And then in terms of what I might read next, or what I am going to read next, so I have both of my Blades and Bodice Ripper book club picks that I need to read before next weekend. One is Witchmark by C.L. Polk, which is a fantasy, well, we did both of these because they're both fantasy romances set in a version of like Edwardian England, I think, or that is the inspiration for the world building. This one, I think, is more of just a romance. This one is, I think, with two men, so that's cool for the romance piece, but then I think it's more of like a mystery kind of plot with a speculative setting. So I'm excited to read. I've heard great things about both of these books. I am really hoping I'm gonna like them both, but I need to get to this before next weekend. So we have that. We have Allegiance of Honor, which I need to read before the end of the month so that I can record the podcast, but you know, this is just an absolute treat. This is a reread. The first time I read this, I gave this 3 stars because I think that it's just a lot of winding up a few threads from the first season, and it's planting some seeds for season 2. So I don't know that as a book, this is like the most successful one in the series, but it's with characters I know and love. Love this series beyond all reasons. So I'm confident that this will be a delightful reread, even if I don't anticipate it being like one of the best in the series, at least from my memory of the first time around. I may try to do some other arc reading. So I have this physical arc of Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. If I get in the mood for some like contemporary small town romance, I may pick this up. Oh, I should mention, I guess I already did this, but I did do my annual reread of A Kiss for Midwinter by Courtney Milan, which was delightful as always, but I may pick up a couple of Christmas novella kind of things. I do like to do that this time of year. And then I'm also hoping I'll get to Fat, A Cultural History of Obesity by Sandra Dr. L. Gilman, because I think that this is going to help me with a couple of videos that I'm working on, commentary type videos, so I may try to get to that. I'm trying to think if there's any other arcs I might try to get to. I don't know. I mean, I'm actually like way ahead right now. I mean, knock wood. I don't have wood, knock velvet sofa. I'm already in my March arcs, really, so I might try to read a few more of those just to be like well and truly ahead before we get into 2022. Like, I have a whole passel of mystery thriller arcs that all come out in March. I feel like I'm reading a lot of fantasy and a lot of mystery this month. That just seems how things are working out. But anyway, we'll see kind of how that ends up shaking out. I think I have one more best of the year video to edit. My family, we're doing Christmas the weekend before Christmas this year, so they're all in town. When you guys are seeing this, they're in town for a long weekend. And then I have my best friend is coming for us to do Christmas in the middle of the week. Once that happens, I actually think the rest of the year is going to be very quiet, which I'm so excited about. I will tell you, from COVID Christmas last year, I did realize that I very much enjoy quiet holidays, and I think I might do this from now on because I really love how peaceful it is when like everybody truly is unplugging at the end of the year. So I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, I'm thinking that by the time you're seeing this, I have basically like 3-ish more days of real plans happening, and then it's just going to be real chill. So I'm hoping that I'll get just some very peaceful reading, cozy holiday vibe time for the rest of 2021. So fingers crossed, because it's been a pretty hectic few weeks. Anyway, that is how my reading's going right now. Definitely let me know how your reading has been going for December. Hits, misses, disappointments, etc. so far. Things that you're hoping that you're going to sneak in before the end of 2021. Let me know that in the comments below. And yeah, I think that that will do it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!